In a stunning move, President Trump backed down and signed a major coronavirus stimulus bill into law, averting a government shutdown. This comes after days of urging lawmakers to increase direct payments to Americans to $2,000. However, he failed to enact those changes and instead allowed some crucial unemployment benefits to expire. Paula Reid takes a closer look.
With the president's signature, millions of struggling Americans will now get some help in extended unemployment benefits and continued protection from evictions. At the same time, the government averted a shutdown. It was a sudden shift. Just hours earlier, the president had retweeted a video of his demands for lawmakers to more than triple payments to individuals.
Increase the ridiculously low $600 to $2,000 or $4,000 for a couple.
In a statement released after signing the bill, the president insisted Congress will now be moving forward on his demands, writing, "I have told Congress that I want far less wasteful spending and more money going to the American people in the form of $2,000 checks per adult and $600 per child." But that's not what the president just signed into law. President Trump has remained on the sidelines through months of negotiations. On Sunday morning, members of both parties called on him to just sign the bill as is.
What the president is doing right now is unbelievably cruel.
You don't get everything you want, even if you're the president of the United States.
The president has remained mostly out of view since he landed in Florida to spend the holidays, but CBS News captured him at his Palm Beach golf course Sunday, where he played for 3 of the past 4 days.
I feel powerless in many ways.
Mr. Trump's change of course on COVID relief is welcome news for unemployed Americans like Javon Anderson. Furloughed in March, he and his wife are counting on this assistance to help pay their rent and medical bills for their daughter.
We had to visit a lot of food banks, which we still do. We had to visit a lot, places that were giving out toys, just to try to keep things normal for her.
So stressful for so many families. Paula Reid is with me now for West Palm Beach, Florida, where she's traveling with the president. Paula, thanks so much for being with us today. We appreciate it.
Of course, always great to be with you. Got a lot of breaking news down here.
We do, and I think people have been watching this so closely with all the delays, the demands from the president. He did back down, as we've been talking about. He signs the relief bill. What exactly do you think his strategy throughout all of this really is, and did he achieve anything significant by doing this?
Well, Jamie, it's not clear there was actually a strategy here, and if there was, it appears to have failed, because at the end of the day, the president signed into law the bill that he was trying to derail. Now, the president for days has been trying to pressure lawmakers into tripling these payments to Americans. Now, he insists in a statement shortly after he signed this that in exchange for signing the bill as is, which is something that lawmakers on both sides of the aisle had been calling for, he insists that Congress will now move forward on several of his priorities, including holding a vote to try to increase these checks as he had requested, also reviewing protections for technology companies, specifically social media companies. The president is frustrated with them. He wants some of the protections that they enjoy to be rolled back. He also says that Congress will review some of these so far unsubstantiated allegations of voter fraud. But, Jamie, these are all promises for process, not actual policies, and it does not appear that the president has actually gotten anything concrete in exchange for this reversal.
Which is interesting, right? Because we've learned, Paula, that the House will vote on increasing direct payments to Americans to $2,000. But even if it passes the House, does the measure stand a chance in the Senate? Where does Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and other Republicans stand on this? It seems like the president is more in tune with Democrats at this point.
Well, let's start, first of all, with the votes. Let me tell you, last week in the House, they put forth a similar measure, and it was blocked by Republicans because it's the president's own party that has really been the roadblock to getting these higher payments. That is expected to come up again today, but there's not expected to be any difference in the math. Now, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, you mentioned him. That's really the key player here. He's the one who had been orchestrating this effort to keep these direct payments lower. He pretty much did a victory lap after this was signed because it showed that he had really prevented these larger proposals by Democrats from getting passed. And interestingly, in his statement last night in response to the president's signing, Senate Majority Leader made no mention of additional votes or the president's other priorities. So time will tell here, Jamie, but it appears that the president could have really been duped and just given some promises that, yeah, they'll look at some stuff, but nothing actually substantive may change with this relief. At this point, again, if Mitch McConnell has had a change of heart or mind, he's certainly keeping it to himself.
Well, Paula, the House also appears poised to override President Trump's veto of the annual defense bill, known as the National Defense Authorization Act. What can you tell us about this?
So this was a piece of legislation that the president had suggested threatened he would veto if lawmakers didn't address some of his key issues. Now, these, interestingly, this included rolling back protections for social media companies. He wanted lawmakers to include in this bill that really was mostly on defense spending, to include provisions that would strip away some of the protections that social media companies enjoy. But even members of his own party said that has nothing to do with this. Why would we put that in this bill? So when it passed with enough votes to potentially override a veto, it was clear that the president's threat had not been heeded. The president also objected to a provision in this bill that would require certain military bases to be renamed if they were named after Confederate leaders. So the president vetoed the bill, but the question is whether they actually still have enough votes to override this veto, because we've learned that some Republicans, even if they voted initially to pass this bill, they may not be willing to vote to override the president. So it's not clear that this override, something that's this very rare, it would be the first time it's happened in the Trump administration, if that's actually going to happen.
Something to closely watch at this point. And Paula, President Trump is set to travel to Georgia next week to campaign for the two Republican candidates facing off in that high-stakes Senate runoff election. Why is it significant for him to go? We've seen that millions upon millions of dollars being spent on this race, but why do Republicans need him there?
Jamie, this race is so critical. I mean, this will determine control of the U.S. Senate. And President Trump's role in this race, well, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. We know he has repeatedly attacked the legitimacy of voting systems in the state of Georgia. On the one hand, he has campaigned on behalf of some of these candidates, as has his daughter Ivanka. But if you're attacking the legitimacy of the voting mechanism, you're also possibly undermining the will or the desire of many voters to go out and participate in that process. The president also created new problems for those Republican candidates when he appeared to be backing off of this COVID relief. That was something that the Democrats who are opposing them were able to seize on and say, look, the president's trying to hold up your relief. Now, in the statements released following the president signing, these Republican senators, they thanked the president for his leadership on this bill, even though he had been opposing it, made no mention of his objections. But, Jamie, they also made no mention of any future efforts to increase these payments. So it'll be very interesting to see if the president believes that these folks are not supporting this promise to revisit this issue, increase these checks. It's possible he may not be willing to throw his full support behind them. But he loves a good campaign rally. They tend to have large events down there in Georgia, while the president would have liked to have had something inside one of the sports arenas indoors. It's more likely that he'll have something outdoors, one of his large semi but not really socially distanced events in Georgia.
Never a dull moment. Paula Reid in West Palm Beach, thank you so much.